Generative economics is the most undervalued and least understood part of Constellation DAG. Nobody else in crypto is claiming to bring forth a new form of economics. So this should catch your attention if you're looking at crypto as the future. The promise of Web3 is that we can own our own data using tokens representing fractional ownership of any asset. If this were to happen successfully, it would mean a new system of economics would need to come forth. Other crypto coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum have more in common with our Web 2 world in that their economies reward those with the most computing resources, like the Bitcoin miners, or holding the most staked coins, which is those that have the most wealth in the case of Ethereum's proof of stake model. So in terms of economics, Bitcoin and Ethereum work a lot like our current world, in which the wealthy and those with the most resources control the network. This is quite old-fashioned, and while these two have started the conversation around digital assets, they are very limited in scope and are more popular in our past than they will be in our future. Now, before we dive deeper into generative economics, let's understand what is called Web 2, which is a system based around extracting value from users. For example, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, these Web 2 companies extract the value of the data that is known about you to sell to advertisers who market their products to you. It may feel like these platforms are free, but they are not. They are monetizing everything they know about you, what you clicked on, and so forth. Web3 is the tokenization of everything that is owned, but it's more than that. See, as we can see, there are so many tokens out there, but they're not built around the generative economy, which can sustain itself. In a generative economy, there are no losers. For example, the environment is not getting ruined as a side effect of the network, like Bitcoin's insane energy consumption. It's actually an evolution of capitalism, which is a system which creates winners and losers. In a generative economy, it creates the conditions for all life to thrive. If Web3 is our future, then it would require not only new infrastructure, which the hypergraph provides, but a new form of economics that is built upon participants of this new world sharing their economic value. It would replace centralized parties controlling resources. It's a new form of ownership, not previously possible by other crypto projects. You, as the individual, would truly be able to not only own your own data, but to have even the smallest of devices that are connected to this network be able to communicate with anything else without incurring any fees. In a Web3 world, the participants of the community or the participants of the company or the content creators are all actually sharing the value that is coming through. So the economic throughput that is happening on a Web3 architecture is being shared. If you look at most of these other blockchain projects, they look like Web 2. They're siloed, the data that they have or the value that is in these separate blockchains is all locked in these blockchains. They can't figure out ways to make them interoperable with others so that shared value and shared liquidity can go between them. The irony of so much of crypto today is that it's actually designed on a Web 2 architecture. All the while screaming, hey, Web 3, Web 3. Some people who find DAG look at it like it's some other blockchain project and totally miss the bus on what's going on here. And if they just looked more into the hypergraph is the name of the network upon which state channels or businesses that launch upon this brand new unprecedented technology, this is where the Web3 ideas can take hold and scale indefinitely without any limits. Now, the hypergraph is not just any other blockchain network. It's a crypto superhighway protocol. It allows the feeless exchange of data coming from any source, inside crypto or outside of crypto, data of any type. And so many people get caught up and they start thinking, well, let me compare DAG to HBAR or DAG to Ethereum. I mean, that's like saying, like, what's better, American Airlines or the internet? What's better, Nike or the internet? What's better, the United States stock market or the internet? None of those things are competing with the internet. The internet is making all those things better. And so the hypergraph is not competing with any of these other coins. It allows them to open up their liquidity and get rid of all their gas fees by launching upon the hypergraph. All those projects are made better. Now, in a Web3 architecture,
A new form of economics is required because there's a new type of ownership. Essentially, it's an ownership redesign. The last few hundred years, the dominant form of ownership has been corporations. 80% of all the global economic output is tied to the top 1,000 corporations in the world. So corporations as a form of extractive value, which their mission statement essentially is, we're here to maximize profits on behalf of shareholders, which sounds great, right? It sounds amazing. Oh, maximize profits, that sounds amazing. But when an entire system is built along those ideals, things start happening because companies don't necessarily care about anything else other than maximizing profits. It's not about having healthy profits, it's about maximizing. So suddenly shady accounting starts happening, or they start firing employees, or they start reducing wages, or they start cutting costs, because anything to please the capital markets, everything has to be done for that. And then CEOs who are able to maximize profits get handsomely rewarded, and the ones that can't get fired. The whole system is built around maximization and extracting value. So for example, in a company, in a regular company, the employees their value is being extracted from them. A form of generative economics that takes place in our actual world would be something like a food co-op or a cooperative or an employee-owned company. In an employee-owned company, the actual workers, the participants of the company, the ones who are giving their value to the company, own the company. They are responsible collectively for the decisions of their health insurance plans, of their retirement plans, how much the pensions are paying out, of investment decisions. And yeah, maybe they collectively select people in their group to be responsible for specific decisions, but those decisions are accountable to the wider group. That is a form of generative economics. Where Constellation is coming into the crypto world, and it has almost more free reign than it does in the traditional financial system, which is dominated by profit maximizing corporations. In crypto, it's an open, airy arena. It's a football field wide place of opportunity. So what we're seeing here with Web3 architecture brought forth by Constellation DAG is what Web3 can be, which is feeless. If you were going to design a Web3 network, it would, out the door, it would have to be feeless. It would have to be interoperable with everything else. It would have to be able to be run on every single device on the planet with no lag, no latency. No other crypto is even claiming to do anything like that. Only DAG has the technology stack to do so. The beauty of DAG is also found in its consensus mechanism. Think of consensus of how things get done on the network. So in Bitcoin or in Cardano and these other blockchains, they have something called proof of work or proof of stake, which the power is accumulated within those who have the most computing resources, like in Bitcoin's case, like the ones who have the most complex advanced computers to be able to mine Bitcoin. That uses a tremendous amount of energy. It's called proof of work. Then there's proof of stake. It's called a plutocracy, where the ones with the most amount of money, the most amount of wealth control the network. Well, DAG has something very different. It has something called proof of reputable observation, known as PRO. It's extremely energy efficient when compared to any other type of consensus mechanism, and it does not rely on staked coins for security because it has built-in trust and reputation management, which circumvents this whole problem that we have with proof of stake and proof of work. And it works a lot like credit scores do in real life, where reputation scores based on past performance of a node are seen as whether it can be seen as trusted or not. To understand generative economics, let's look at something where it doesn't take place. Let's look at Ethereum, where none of the value of the Ethereum blockchain, all the business that's happening on Ethereum, none of that value is being accrued in the Ether token. None of it. The Ether token is just a toll, literally. If you want to transact on the Ethereum network and you want to trade Ethereum for another Ethereum-based token or anything on the Ethereum chain, you're literally paying money to take your data and transfer it across to wherever you want to send it. And that amount that you're going to pay, that gas fee, is not even a fixed price. It changes based on the time of day, based on how many people are on it. It's like if everyone tried to leave the city at the same time and the roads are clogged, well, you're going to pay a lot more money to get to the front of the line versus everyone else who also has maybe a lot more money than you and is also trying to pay to the front of the line. And that's the architecture of Ethereum. But not only that, none of the value, none of the economic output that is happening on Ethereum, which some Ethereum projects are very successful, none of that value is being accrued in Ether. None. contrast that with DAG. Not only is DAG feeless, which makes it incredibly attractive to anyone who wants to build a tokenized economy on there. So let's say a new company would decide to build on the hypergraph tomorrow, and they become wildly successful. Their success is actually accruing within the value of DAG. And then the next day, another company comes and they're wildly successful. Well, their success is accruing in the value of the DAG token, which makes DAG an exponential stablecoin. It makes DAG the greatest answer to the US dollar.
Look closely at DAG and you will notice unique attributes which are not found in other cryptos. For example, in a generative economy, all participants share in the success of the network. Well, with the hypergraph, the bigger the network gets, the faster it gets, the more valuable it gets. There is not one other crypto on planet Earth that this is true for. We are conditioned to believe that the bigger a network gets, the slower it gets. Think of Wi-Fi or Ethereum. Here's another one. The norm in crypto is that most coins are giving a yield of APR because of other people who buy into that coin. And the Ponzi-nomics is that the investors get paid because of future investors who buy in. With DAG, the reason the price goes up is because more people are buying and less are selling. Why is there demand for DAG? Because the coin itself has intrinsic value and real utility. State channel businesses either need to be holding DAG for their business to scale, or they need to pay DAG node holders in their own minted coin to pay them for this bandwidth. DAG is essentially tokenized bandwidth. It is data as currency. What's most unique about DAG is that all the business success of state channels that launch on the hypergraph, that success is collectively accruing within the DAG token. The network effect of this brand new technology is so enormous that we have not yet seen exponential growth of this kind in crypto before. The hypergraph is the cutting edge of where technology meets human consciousness. This is an evolution of systems design, benefiting humanity, allowing us all to own our own data on this brand new form of internet.
When you look at DAG, well, what is DAG? What is it representative of? Well, it's an index token of all the business that's happening on the network. And what is the business that's happening on the network? Data. Data moving from point A to point B. Data moving around the planet. Millions of data points moving around. Data's always going to be moving, and it's moving bigger and faster. And there's so much more data that's in our future than there is in our past. It's just nonstop exponential growth. Well, if you can capture all the world's data, and you can capture that in a tokenized coin, and accrue that value into DAG, that is probably the best investment you could ever make. If you're betting on big data, you're betting on DAG. It is the biggest winning bet you can make in all of crypto, because you're essentially betting on the power of data. And what is it worth? And in a Web3 architecture, we own our own data. Well, how do we own our own data? Do you own your own healthcare data? No, you do not. Do you own your own email data if you have a Gmail address? No, you do not. If you have a Twitter account and tomorrow you want to go on TikTok, can you take your Twitter following, which is your data, and migrate it into TikTok with a click of a button? No, you cannot. All this is closed. We live in an economy where data is not owned by the individual. It's owned by a third party, which we need to get access to. Try to go get your health records. There's a third party holding it. You have to pay a fee. They'll release it to you. Do you own that? And so what we're seeing is that there isn't even an architecture. There is no infrastructure yet for Web3 to take hold. The Web3 is just an idea. And there are so many ideas coming forth from so many innovative creators around the world who want to build Web3 projects. But when they look around, there's nowhere to build it on. You could have had the most interesting ideas about email in 1989, but if you didn't have anyone who could receive the email from you, because they didn't have a computer, because even if they got a computer, they didn't have a fast enough internet connection, you needed infrastructure in order to be there so that those ideas can take hold. So too, we have it here. Web3 is an idea. DAG and the hypergraph are the foundational layer for this new form of technology, which is going to usher in new forms of social enterprises based upon shared values. One of the things you hear in crypto a lot is community. And when a community forms, it's incredibly powerful. A community forming around shared values, shared vision, shared desires, goals, beliefs can do much more than any individual can with the same beliefs. Together, we are always stronger than any one of us are alone. A great spiritual truth, which is built into the DAG white paper. A lot of people don't seem to understand, how could it be feeless? How can DAG be feeless? And to answer it in full would require a more advanced explanation. To give an example, when a company comes onto the hypergraph and they mint their own token, now they have their own business, they have an idea on how they're gonna bring real utility to their token. They're coming onto the hypergraph. They don't have to pay for the throughput. They don't have to pay for the value of their data moving around with anything else other than their own token. They can say, hey, here's our business, here's our white paper, this is our team, this is how transparent we are, this is what we're planning on doing. Or would you, as a DAG node holder, a DAG node holder is somebody who's holding 250,000 DAG, would you be pointing your node at our state channel, at our business, so that we can have faster data throughput? And to reward you, we will pay you in our own token. Now, our token may not be worth much right now, but if you take a bet on us, it's gonna be worth a lot. So that's an example of generative economics at its best, because it's not extracting value from anything. It's sharing value, it's generating value. And the greater that business comes on and succeeds, the greater the value that is given to the node holders and the more nodes they're gonna need. So then it attracts even more liquidity into DAG of people who wanna provide the throughput for that business, who in turn wanna get paid in that token because somebody else is creating real value, real utility. DAG as a network, as an ecosystem, is a culture. It's a culture of attracting A+, top-rated, 5-star projects who are built around real utility, honest data, transparency. These are things that are not necessarily the status quo today in 2022 in crypto. And so this is changing the game. The beauty of DAG is in its architecture, it's in its systems design. It works just like nature does. It's designed to be autonomous, and it redirects resources on a network level to optimize the utility based on whatever's happening on the network. It maximizes efficiency and value across the entire network. It's similar to the way if a tree dies in a forest, or the whole forest is aware of it, and the forest heals itself to maintain its structural integrity. It's known as a symbiotic state in nature. DAG works the same way. What you want to see in crypto is what you want to see in nature. You want to see things working with the path of least resistance, because that's where you're going to have the most allowance. You don't want to go against the current. You want to swim with it. The beauty of DAG's growth trajectory is also that one DAG is representative in a sense of computational space. And if 250,000 DAG is what is needed for a node, well, how does that grow in a sustainable fashion as the network grows and the price of DAG skyrockets, which it will? They can lower the requirements for how much is a node. So a node can then be worth, let's say, 125,000 DAG. And this is what's called horizontally scaling architecture, where nothing is really changing on the network other than the requirements of how much DAG is needed to run the computation. This is a genius mechanism which allows the network to horizontally scale indefinitely, or what we would say infinitely. It's a scale-free architecture. Nobody's figured this out before. Nobody in the crypto space has anything close to this. And every other project that's clamoring to be something of Web3, if you look closely, they'll just talk about how they're an Ethereum killer, which is ironic because Ethereum's already broken. It's a gas fee model. You can't build a predictable business on top of it. If I wanted to build a data business on top of Ethereum, I won't even know my expenses for the next month because I don't know what the gas fees are going to be. You can't build a predictable business on there. But you can build a predictable business on Constellation's hypergraph. Those who are building on DAG need to require throughput for their businesses to take hold. And so they're competing amongst themselves. State channel businesses are competing amongst themselves to have a reason why DAG node holders should be pointing their nodes their way to give them more bandwidth. Well, if state channel businesses are competing, that is a striving towards transparency and in showing why, hey, I'm a project that is doing real world things that is going to explode in value. Come point your node at us and we'll pay you in our token. And another project may be saying a similar thing. And it's up for DAG node holders to be doing their due diligence and research to be able to say, oh, I trust this project. This one's going someplace. versus rug pulls, which are repelled from such an architecture, or scams, which would never want to come to the hypergraph to do business because that's not a place for them. And the hypergraph is far more advanced than any other blockchain out there. Other blockchains are still touting smart contracts. Of course, DAG can do smart contracts, but it has an ability to offer something that other blockchains can't do. Businesses can program in complex logic with complex parameters that is far beyond the limits of smart contracts into their business logic. They can essentially create any type of data business they want and code it in and then monetize it with their own tokenized value. The stronger these companies will be with their tokenomics, the more powerful they will be. I think that the coming unicorns of crypto and the greatest ideas that we have yet to even be seen will be built on Constellation, simply because there is no other system to be built on. Nowhere else can you get feeless data moving seamlessly between not only other blockchains, but between the non-crypto world. Most of crypto is locked liquidity. You can't get things in and out easily. DAG solves that. This is life-changing gains. This is something that is unlike anything else. It's unprecedented in the entire space. Just as much as state channels are being looked at by node operators in terms of, well, how trustworthy is the state channel? How big can that business get? How valuable will their token be? Do I want to point my node at them? Well, so too, state channels are looking at node holders and saying, well, how trustworthy is your node? Is your node always up? Is it healthy? Has it done anything in the past? And this is where the consensus mechanism of DAG shines, because it's called proof of reputable observation, where nodes are rated based on everything that they've done before, based on their reputation. Think of it like a credit score. What's your relationship with money and credit in the past before I go and lend you more? So node operators with healthy nodes and a great history of performance and uptime can then demand a premium for their high quality of service. Where game theory comes in is that if a node was poorly taken care of, then it can't process as much data. The throughput is throttled. But a node that's healthy, that has a near perfect score, can actually process more data throughput. There's third-party companies, Node Army and Node Garage, that intend to provide a managed service to node operators who may not possess the technical skill to maintain the reputation and performance of their nodes. And so these service providers can be contracted to make sure that there's 24/7 uptime and so that the node is going to be healthy at all times. All the visionaries of crypto, you'll hear them say, oh, this is the age of interoperability, and this is the age of utility. Well, you can't have interoperability or true utility unless there's a feeless architecture, and DAG is a layer 0. Now, anyone can say they're a layer 0. Anyone can say they're Web 3. Tomorrow, you can go out and create a foundation and call it Web 4 and say, well, we're Web 4 because we have a foundation. But that doesn't mean much, right? Words only take you so far. The idea has to hold up. So when we look under the hood of DAG, we see that this is a true layer 0. It's feeless. It facilitates feeless microtransactions. It eliminates all financial barriers for people to interact with it, while at the same time allowing for businesses to build upon it. You see, in the layer 1 and layer 2, those are what they call fee per transaction model. And the costs quickly become out of control, prohibitive, and it breaks down the velocity of the network. The network can't even grow. It's stunting its own growth, because as soon as it takes off, their cheap gas fees of these other models become slowly more expensive. There was a time when Ethereum's gas fees were pennies, just as much as all these other chains, which tout themselves as having cheap gas fees. Yeah, they're cheap gas fees because not so many people are using those networks. But in a fee per transaction model, those gas fees will eventually spiral out of control. So there's no point building upon them. So all these new chains just give birth to new chains, which claim to have cheaper fees. It's a never-ending cycle leading nowhere. With Constellation DAG, the businesses that are building upon it, they attract the computational liquidity through the rewards that they're offering to the node operators and to stakers. And they're incentivizing them to delegate their DAG to support their state channel. And so this avoids the whole charge per transaction model, and instead integrates a generative effect into the network's economy, enabling feeless base layer 0 network ability to be possible. And it allows an accountless, indefinite number of businesses to grow on top of it. This is the public infrastructure which will serve Web3. There is nothing else like this in all of crypto. The only thing you can compare DAG to is not even Bitcoin, it's the internet itself. Constellation's hypergraph is an unprecedented designed network that will be the rails of Web3. So anyone with the Web3 idea is going to build on DAG. Now imagine people are going to come and companies are going to come and they're going to build Web3 ideas. And when they build on the hypergraph, the bigger the idea, the more successful they are, they're going to require more data throughput. They're going to need more nodes, which is going to create immense buying pressure for people who want to supply that throughput. So people are going to be buying DAG and providing the nodes throughput for those state channels so that they can get paid in the token for these successful Web3 businesses. It's a genius system because the buying pressure on DAG will continue and nobody will really want to sell their DAG because in doing so, you'll be giving up tremendous amounts of passive income, which you would be getting from these companies that require their data to continuously be running. As these businesses become more and more successful, so will their tokens. And so will the DAG node holder who's pointing their node at these state channels. So it's a beautiful generative ecosystem in which the hypergraph is not competing with anyone. It's not competing with any crypto. There's no tribalism in DAG. It's all inclusive. It welcomes every other project. It will make everything else better. Ethereum's gas fees disappear. I mean, every other project's roadblocks of locked liquidity in their own blockchains will suddenly disappear. And it opens up a whole new world of utility because if every blockchain is interoperable with each other via the hypergraph, it begs the question, what makes them so unique? Right now, they're all trying to stand and be unique by claiming they all can have faster transactions per second. But what if the transactions per second narrative doesn't matter anymore? Because there's unlimited bandwidth and the only thing that's necessary is to prove why your idea, why your Web3 blockchain is better or doing something different or is serving a niche or a community. So when someone has a Web3 idea and builds their company on the hypergraph, not only will they be able to mint their own L0, which stands for layer 0, their L0 token on the hypergraph, and the L0 token, which is a data standard for Constellation DAG, this token standard can do things which others can't. It's cross-chain. It can go across any blockchain. It goes cross-system. It's what's called a global liquidity pool in which any piece of data or any digital asset can move across the network with no fees. And if they need to pay for more bandwidth because their business is wildly successful, they can pay in their own minted token, which is already successful because their business tokenomics is creating economic value for their token, and they could just pay for their throughput in it. It allows for startups to be able to fund their own vision, and it allows for crowdsourced liquidity based on actual utility. This is not the norm in crypto today. We're moving away from a gas fee model where people have to pay per transaction, which is unscalable and broken. And we're moving towards where people and businesses will be paying based on the value that they're bringing to the wider world. The value that they're bringing to the world is far beyond where crypto is today. When the entire world is tokenized using the power of big data, where do you think that's going to be built? It's going to be on Constellation DAG. There isn't even another blockchain crypto project that is attempting to be what DAG already is. And so the network effect is going to be enormous. This is the coming rise of the Web3 world. And the vision and the social enterprises and the new ideas that are going to spring forth are going to happen on Constellation's hypergraph. Hop on, don't miss the ride.